Floyd Mayweather and Manny Pacquiao finally fought the biggest money fight ever. You were there. It did not live up to anything we had hoped for. So 9 years later, you're back in Las Vegas now. What do you reflect on with that as Mayweather Pacquiao finally did happen?
I'm sitting in the same building that I was in that day 9 years ago because I'm in my hotel room at the MGM Grand, which is where I stayed for that fight and where that fight took place. For all I know, I'm in the same room. You know,
They got a lot of rooms
everything.
there. It may not be the exact same room. I understand
Yeah,
what you're saying.
like 5,000 rooms at one time. I think it was the biggest hotel in the world. Anyway, Mayweather Pacquiao. Everything about the lead up to the fight, if you go back to the years that it took to make it, that was an agita every day of the week because of the nonsense of that they wouldn't make it, and there was all the arguing back and forth and all the failed negotiations and the attempts to try to get it done, and for a million reasons where blame was on both sides at different times for it not happening. And then it came together. You can go and Google the stories about how they very famously accidentally met each other at a Miami Heat basketball game. It led to a meeting in the hotel room and a decision to let's try to get this done, and a lot of efforts made on both sides. And you had the now disgraced former chairman of CBS, Les Moonves, basically getting together with Bob Arum and Al Heyman and getting them to sit in a room together that hadn't happened for many years and come up with a framework, and also get HBO and Showtime to get their shit together. It was a lot of things. That was
Right.
there's no deal in boxing that you could talk to me about that would have more moving parts and be more complicated and have more emotion on both sides than that one. The fact that it ever did get done is still a fucking miracle to me. But that shows you when there's that much money at stake, it finally gets done because the fight ended up generating a crazy $650 million, which is the most money in the history of combat sports and many other events that are not combat sports on one night. But the whole preparation for the fight in terms of the buildup when it got to like fight week, when I tell you, TJ, I've covered hundreds and hundreds of events in my time doing this, was the single most miserable experience of my life. The top ranked people and the Pacquiao people were great to deal with. They were professional and everything was cool like always. Everybody else, the PR teams, HBO, Showtime, all the people involved with Mayweather Promotions, the Al Heyman people, PBC, TGB, the whole nine. Absolute assholes from the beginning of the event. They treated the media so badly. They were such dicks about everything. We didn't even know if we had seats in the arena until the morning of the fight. They started kicking people out. My old colleague from ESPN, Michelle Beadle, got kicked out because she had the audacity to ask Floyd about his past domestic violence issues, and they took affront to that. It was a fucking shit show. I hated everything about that fight week, and I've covered a million fight weeks in Las Vegas and everywhere. The fight itself sucked, and then there was a lot of excuses afterwards from Pacquiao about the shoulder, which I understand he didn't want to cancel the fight because he made like fucking $150 million.
Right, exactly.
There was
They clearly
like
had an injured shoulder that had to have surgery after that fight.
There were, and he knew if he pulled out, it was probably not going to get rescheduled.
They were never going to fight.
There was class action lawsuits because of that over the pay-per-view. It was soup to nuts. I mean, yes, we're discussing it on the nostalgia, but I'm not nostalgic for it, if that makes sense.
I understand. It happened, but the end result is it's not a memorable classic.
No, I'll say this though. In the end, people would ask me who was I picking. I never would answer the question until the fight week. I tell you, my hand to God, from the moment the fight was conceived to the moment that the fight bell for round one rang, I always felt, even though I was a huge Manny Pacquiao fan, I knew that Floyd Mayweather would whip his ass. Now, had the fight been a few years earlier, it might have been closer. But I still always thought that Floyd was going to beat Manny Pacquiao.
Because the fight was easily 3 years past when it should have happened.
Pretty much. It took 5 years for them to finally make it once it became a thing.
Yes.
So Floyd Mayweather, putting all the bullshit aside about the fight weekend and just the nature of how the fight went, in the end, you can't criticize Floyd because Floyd did what he was supposed to do. He went in there and he boxed and he did what he does best. And he basically ran Manny Pacquiao out of the ring and won like 9-3, probably thereabouts, maybe 8-4 if you're generous, could have been 10-2. But he dominated and won easily and stamped himself. And this is not insignificant. Not only was that to unify the welterweight titles and all the money that was involved, it was to determine for history who was the best fighter of the era. In the end, it was Floyd Mayweather. Doesn't mean he was the most beloved. Doesn't mean he was the most exciting. but he was the best fighter of the era based on that
Yeah.
win compared to, because they fought all so many common opponents also.